Hey, welcome. Today we're going to go on a little journey, a trip to uncover the secret history of, well, your data. We're going to connect the dots from ancient Roman codes all the way to that little padlock you see in your browser. Okay, let's dive right in.
87 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. So what's that? It's not a lottery jackpot, I'll tell you that. That right there is the number of Facebook profiles that were harvested without anyone's consent in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, a number that's a pretty stark reminder of why we need to be talking about data protection.
And yeah, that brings us straight to our first big idea. In this digital age we're all living in, your personal information, it's one of the most valuable assets on the entire planet, which unfortunately also makes it a massive target. So here's how this whole thing went down. It all kicked off with what looked like a harmless personality quiz app. But here's the catch. That app didn't just grab the user's data, it scraped data from their entire friends list. And this information? It was used to build these unbelievably detailed psychological profiles, all to influence voters. It was, to put it mildly, a huge wake-up call for, well, for everybody. Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we've got to get two terms straight: data privacy and data protection. Think of it like this. Privacy is your fundamental right to stand up and say, hey, that's my info, and I decide who gets to use it. Protection, on the other hand, is the fortress. It's the technology, the laws, the whole system that we build to actually defend that right. One is the principle, the other is the practice. And the gold standard for building that fortress? It's known as the CIA triad. No, not that CIA. This one stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is all about keeping secrets secret. Integrity means making sure the data hasn't been messed with. And availability, that just means you can actually get to your data when you need it. Seriously, every secure system you use, from your bank to your email, is built on these three pillars. But here's the thing. This whole idea of protecting information, it isn't new. Not at all. In fact, to understand our digital locks today, we need to jump in a time machine and see how we cracked the very first codes. This brings us to the ancient art of cryptography. It's basically the science of scrambling messages so that only the person it's for can unscramble them. At its heart, it's all about having a secret rule and a secret key. Let's look at one of the oldest and probably the most famous examples out there. So, here's our original message, what we call plain text, a simple hello, completely readable and totally vulnerable. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to make it a secret. To do that, we need a key. We're going to use the Caesar cipher, named after Julius Caesar himself, with a key of 3. What does that mean? It means our secret rule is just to shift every letter in our message 3 places forward in the alphabet. It's basically a simple decoder ring. So how does this actually work? Well, first, we turn each letter into a number. So H becomes 7, E becomes 4, you get the idea. Then we use our key, adding 3 to each of those numbers. And finally, we just convert those new numbers back into letters. And boom, our plain text hello is now the ciphertext KOOR. To anyone who doesn't have the key, it's just a bunch of nonsense. We've successfully hidden our message in plain sight. Simple, right? But hey, it was effective for its time. But, and there's always a but, here's the fatal flaw. See, every language has patterns. In English, the letter E shows up way more than any other letter. So a clever codebreaker could just look at our secret message, see which letter appears most often, and make a really good guess that it's the stand-in for E. And from there, the whole message just starts to unravel. And that very weakness leads to a really brilliant question. What if you could build a machine where the rule, the substitution, changed for every single character you typed? What if E was X 1 second, but then it was Q the next? And that question? Well, it leads us directly to this beast, the legendary Enigma machine. Used by Germany in World War II, it was this incredible electromechanical marvel designed to create what they thought was a truly unbreakable code. Let's peek inside. When an operator pressed a key, an electrical signal shot through a series of rotating scramblers called rotors. Now here's the genius part. With every single key press, at least one of those rotors would click forward to a new position, completely changing the electrical path for the very next letter. This meant that if you typed A twice in a row, it would become 2 completely different random letters. It created this constantly shifting, multi-layered cipher that was just unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The number of possible starting positions for the Enigma was just astronomical. We're talking more possibilities than there are atoms in the known universe. It was considered absolutely 100% unbreakable. And yet, it wasn't. A team of brilliant minds, led by the one and only Alan Turing, they found a few tiny, human-made mistakes in how it was used. And they built their own machine, the Bombi, to exploit those mistakes. Their success didn't just break a code. It literally changed the course of history. So how did we get from the clunky mechanical rotors of the Enigma all the way to the digital fortresses that protect our data today? Well, you might be surprised to learn that the underlying principles are actually very similar. It's just an evolution from rotors to randomness. You see, the spirit of Enigma's constantly shifting rotors lives on today in the concept of randomness. Modern cryptography is completely, utterly dependent on random numbers. They're what we use to generate the secret keys that lock up our data. Because if a key is predictable, the encryption is totally useless. But you should know not all randomness is created equal. You've got true random numbers, which are generated from chaotic, physical stuff, like atmospheric noise, making them completely unpredictable. Then you have pseudo-random numbers, which are created by an algorithm. They look random, but if you know the starting point, the seed, you can reproduce the entire sequence. That's why for the really important stuff, like generating a master encryption key, you absolutely need true randomness. So we've gone from Caesar's simple shift cipher to Enigma's wild rotors, to this mind-bending concept of digital randomness. How does all this history and theory actually protect you right now in your day-to-day life? This ancient science is working for you constantly, just humming away under the surface. You see that little padlock in your browser? Yep, that's cryptography securing your connection. Sending a message on an app like Signal or WhatsApp? That's end-to-end encryption, which means only you and the other person can read it. Online banking, passwords, even software updates, they all rely on these powerful cryptographic ideas to keep you safe. And you know what? The laws are finally starting to catch up. The principles of data protection are now being written into law all over the world. Europe's GDPR, for example, gives people the right to be forgotten. California's CCPA gives consumers the right to know what data is being collected about them and to opt out. These laws are really an attempt to give the power back to the individual. Which brings us to our final thought here. What this whole history shows us is that data protection isn't some destination we arrive at. It's a perpetual arms race. It's a constant battle of wits between the people building the locks and the people trying to pick them. The technology is more powerful than ever, but so are the threats. So the real question isn't just about the tools we have, but about our mindset. In this ongoing battle, who do you really trust to protect your data?